Welcome, everybody. I'm Scarlett Lunning with Employee and Family Resources, your EAP program, and our topic for the day is upping the joy for the 2021 holiday season. And even though there's a focus on the holidays and whatever that means for you, also you can sort of think about this as a time to look at this as something, ideas, and your own wisdom as to how you might deal with any season, whether it's a difficult or challenging work time, family stresses going on, whatever. So I'm hoping that you'll all find something that will be helpful for you here. I know just revisiting everything is helpful to me. So we're going to explore what this season looks like, this time of year looks like now in comparison to last year, expand our awareness on how we have probably amazingly navigated the viral economic and social worlds these past few years, honoring all of those struggles and also what the fears that sometimes were involved, yet most importantly for me, the resiliency that we have that is in all of us. And it's not just somebody's personality, it's developable. I don't think there's such a word. Everybody can develop more resilience. And then we're going to recognize living in the present, the future, and always expanding our awareness and our perspectives to embrace our capacity to evolve. You know, I have always thought that that perspective of holding other people in a place where this is who they are, this is their personality, and this is always who they'll be, even though we do have some habitual ways, we always have an opportunity to expand outside of that. So to fulfill those intentions, we're going to ground ourselves in how far we've come and identify what we believe lies ahead for the holidays, lies ahead for any kind of stressful situation that you might be considering. And maybe you are one of the wonderful people who thinks holidays, yay, I'm always joyful anyway, and I do not see it as stressful. And so we're looking to take on your perspective if that's how you feel, and clarifying, creating, and celebrating what we want to experience, which would be, at least for me, that. So let's just close our eyes and take a look back. Where were you? What kind of feeling and thinking were you sitting in at this point in time, just before the Thanksgiving, and whether it's Christmas, Hanukkah, or whatever it is, Kwanzaa, what you celebrate, what was your state of mind at this point in time last year? Just take a couple of deep breaths, and I'll give you a few minutes to sort of just imagine the you of November 2020. So I know for me, I still had, and many of my friends continue to have a lot of concerns about what's going on with the virus. And not that I don't take precautions and want to make sure. I've had my my injection and my vaccine. So anyway, when I think of all the fear that was happening last year and a lot of sadness in regards to, well, now I can't be with any of my family over this holiday, and I can't do things as I used to, I can't go in the stores and shop. So we're already doing that. But one of the things that I noticed last year is that I let go of some expectations of myself because of the circumstances to not go as crazy over some things as I do oftentimes. So I like to think of these candles and the seeds around them as, seeds for the kind of holiday or the kind of season we would like to create for ourselves. So this is some of my thinking in the old past days. Oh no, it's almost time for the holidays. I haven't done a thing. What am I going to put up for decorations? How do I honor the real reason for the holiday? I'm not supposed to get caught up in all this thinking, right? Oh, and how many different things do I need to make? What special things do I need to cook? What gifts do I need to give? And what are everyone's expectations of me? That last one about caring what everybody's thinking and making up stories about what everybody's thinking, which is usually what gets us into a tailspin. So I look at all of those and I think, you know what? I can turn every one of those around if I want to, because I'm making up a whole lot of stuff about what it's supposed to be like. I don't know where you land in your families, but as the oldest, I think I should do something sort of special. But then I realized I let go of some of that role and left it to my next two sisters. And at first, I've got to admit, my ego was a little bruised by that, but it really has been helpful to allow them to do and shine in what they always do so well, and then to take on the things that I wanted to do as a part of that family. So sometimes we take on roles and we think we have to keep those, like you're always the gravy maker or you're always the turkey or you always have the home. So there are times when we might be able to make a decision that would be different than what we've done in the past, and we might find out that it's just fine for other people and that somebody else would like to take a turn at that activity. So 2020, this is how it looked. But as I said, I found out I was not running around so much because I wasn't able to go out and about with large groups. In fact, for Thanksgiving, I was cocooned, luckily cocooned with my son, his wife, and two children. And so we did something rather different for Thanksgiving, which I think it will always go down as one of my favorite Thanksgiving. We went down to Missouri because we figured the weather would be a little bit warmer, and we camped out by the Buffalo River. It was very quiet, not hardly any other campers, maybe one other tent, and we had all the same kind. Well, no, did we have some? I'm trying to think. We didn't have turkey. That's funny. I can't even think of what our main meal was, but I made two pies and uh, we had wonderful food. I do remember that. Lots of my daughter-in-law is a farm to table chef, which is a huge gift. And so lots of vegetables were always to be had and wonderful meats for those who eat meat. So we had a great time, and the kids even got in the river, which was really cold, but was a good thing. And they enjoyed it, and it was so um, invigorating. So, how might you do your holiday a little bit differently if you still want to make sure that you're not going to be with too many people? And I have several friends who have underlying conditions that they do want to stay in small gatherings this holiday too. So I wanted to identify, I looked up what the recommendations are from the CDC. And these were the only two recommendations that I found: recommending vaccinations, and the other one is wearing masks indoors around people from other households. And of course, that is up to, I don't know if most of you are in Iowa, but if you are, then you've probably found that there are a lot of places in Iowa where people do not wear masks. So this is up to you and your feeling of comfort and your thought about what responsibilities you have to the people around you as to whether you wear a mask or not. But these are the two recommendations by the CDC. And remember, we didn't have vaccinations at this time last year. So something I believe that we can really be grateful for. So my fresh start thinking about the holidays, I think I've already given you some of it, but I'm working to determine what I really want to preserve from the past, because I don't want to fall back into those old do too much times. And I want to make certain that it's a really wonderful experience for the people I'm around and for myself. You know, I think of how I really used to do Christmas in a crazy way, and that would have been finally finishing my shopping at 00:00, so like the day or 2 days before, and then staying up all Christmas Eve wrapping presents. Yep, I know. And who wants to be awake on Christmas and just sort of be half present? So, anyway, half present for presents, right? So, I'm sure that many of you are much better at, whether it's a work project or whatever it is, at pacing yourself and enjoying each activity as you do it. Because I do really enjoy cooking and I don't want to be doing it at the last minute. So I want to just be okay with how things present themselves for me this time. And I'm really curious as to what's going on for you. So if anybody wants to put something in the chat about how they're experiencing this time, I would love to find out. So right now, let's breathe into a vision of a joyful, non-frantic time of love and connection. Just as whatever holiday it is, whatever religious belief, that's always the goal, isn't it? Love and connection. So let's create a doable plan honoring the meaning of the holiday, letting loved ones in on your plan and your thinking, and always being okay with what doesn't work out. That last one is a doozy. If you've got high expectations as to how those cupcakes or that turkey or that casserole is going to work out and it doesn't, are you going to be okay with plan B? Why not, right? Why be miserable with what is when we don't have any other option? So, what are some ideas that I've researched over the year that I've found to be personally very helpful to create the joy? And I love how you can create that word with paint, with ribbons, and you can create it in yourself. And that is the most wonderful part, that we have the capacity to internally create joy, even if what's going on outside is not, or in our life is not working, if only for just a few minutes. And what I think of is that story of the older woman who was moved to another apartment, and um, she was not capable of walking on her own, and she was looking out the window of that apartment, and she said, "Oh my, I love the beautiful trees. Oh, and look at those families playing on the yard. What a lovely place this is to be." And then we find out later that she's blind and that's what she's imagining. So if we just need to take a break to imagine something more beautiful, if we're in a bad spot, that can be a huge help. So just as I was talking about, the most important part of the holidays, of any time, is our thinking. what we're thinking about that. And I'm not saying you can take every thought that comes into your mind and kick it out, of course. But there is the capacity for peace. I was listening to singer, Michael Singer, this morning, and he was saying, he was talking to someone who was saying, so what happens when my partner says something critical of me? I have this tendency, she said, to go into a bit of a depression, or maybe not, just a low mood after I'm criticized by, whether it's my boss, whether it's my partner, whatever. And he said, well, that's our ego taking a hold of that and causing us to feel threatened by that criticism. If we take our ego out of it and just sink into ourselves and our okayness, that can go away faster. Just make it a practice to let go of things. And I'm working on that too, because obviously when somebody has just a turn of phrase, I can think that that's some kind of criticism of me. And it's happened just recently when I was sharing my kitchen with someone, that things that I was doing, and this can happen in holidays, were different than that other person wanted to do them. And there was a lot of, well, if you did it my way, it'd be going a lot better. And so I just needed to breathe and go through that a little bit calmer. So some of us say that we are worriers, and that's a habit too. I love Mark Twain's quote, I had many problems in life, most of which never happened. And how can't we say that? How many things that we have had anxiety about happening that did not happen? So getting present, the present moment is the only time over which we have dominion. So that's a question that I ask myself when I am in, what can I do now? Or how can I be now? Just even looking at this peaceful scene. And for me, during the fall, just driving down the street and catching the sight of a beautiful tree can take me to a totally different place. So one thing we can always do is to up our gratitude. Breathe into thankfulness. Thankfulness and joy are the most beneficial feelings to our thoughts, bodies, and emotions. And really, there's lots of research going on, and we do a seminar on gratitude that is showing that that feeling is amazing in its capacities to up the chemicals in our brains that help us feel in a better place. And so we can transform our lives by just being thankful for the littlest thing, even for difficulties that happen. Like I mentioned that I had 5 grandchildren overnight last night, and so pancakes were the fare. So before I started this webinar, I still have several plates that are on the floor because the dog was licking the syrup off of the plate. So I've got a little bit of a mess to clean up, but I'm still happy that I had the opportunity to serve the grandchildren pancakes before they went off to school today. So we take care of our mind and our body with gratitude, with our thoughts, staying in as much of a positive place as we can keep them. And we take care of our body by breathing through our noses, caring for our eye health, eating healthily, sleeping, moving, so exercising. And I will start with the breath part, which I've talked, and if any of you have tuned in before, that's one of the big things that I learned over the last few years is to breathe through my nose. I recognized that I was doing a little bit of snoring, that I was waking up with dry mouth, and I was catching colds more frequently. I didn't catch them before. I mean, it was previous to the pandemic that I was really not as healthy as I had been in the past, and I didn't know what it was about. So breathing through my nose has really helped. It's like our pharmacy for our body. It filters the negative things out, and it also creates nitric oxide, which is an anti-inflammatory. So it's really, really helpful to breathe through your nose. And I know that Johanna will laugh about that I tape my mouth shut every night to make sure that I'm breathing through my nose. And a couple of times when I haven't had tape, I've noticed that yes, I am starting to do that just as a habit now. And I'd like to tune you into not Harvard, Stanford researcher by the name of Andrew Huberman. He is a neurobiologist, so he knows all about the chemicals in our brains and how to up some of the positive chemicals like dopamine, which is really what keeps us moving, motivated, excited. And there are lots of different ways in through behaviors that we can up our dopamine. So he also says that we need to get outside and look at a panoramic view, that is really helpful for our sleep habits and for our eyes to make sure that we let in the light when we need to let in the light and have it dark when we need to have it dark. So go to andrewhuberman.com. I think that's what that is, or no, it's Huberman Labs, and he has lots of excellent podcasts on all sorts of healthy things, how to get better sleep, what kinds of exercise is helpful. One of the things that he mentioned just recently, and this is something else that I've started, is increasing the oxygen in my body by doing some breathing exercises. Excuse me, there is a man by the name of Wim, W-I-M Hof, H-O-F, he's called the Iceman because he has learned that we've forgotten so many of the strengths that our body has, that he can stay in the cold for long periods of time. And one thing that jumping in cold water, taking a cold shower can do is that also ups dopamine, our good feelings. Also good for weight loss, all sorts of things, being in cold for a certain period of time. So maybe that's something you want to try this winter, and check in the Wim Hof on the breathing part. So I do a breathing exercise every morning before I get up. It's one reason to not get out of bed faster. And it's 3 sets of fast, deep breaths, and then breath holds, 3 breath holds. So it's really been helpful, and I think provided more energy and better circulation for me. And you all probably have good senses as to what a healthy diet is, and sometimes we aren't doing it. So just, not being our own worst enemy, either in our thinking, our eating, our breathing, our sleeping, our moving, and then not blaming ourselves for the days that we are not doing what we need to do, because then we can get ourselves into a funk. So this is a really, really helpful thing to remember, is that life is an inside out experience. I'll let you sit in that a little bit, because I know I always used to think it had to do with what was going on in my life as to whether I was going to be happy or not, or that maybe somebody over there is happy all the time, even though they have rough things happen, but that's not me. I didn't realize that we have all the strength inside of us that we need to be able to manage. And that doesn't mean that we can't help each other. We are also meant to be social creatures. And so, how do we give ourselves just quiet time, whether it's meditating a couple times a day, just stopping and smelling the roses, looking at the trees, looking at the snow, whatever it is or reading a book or watching a fun movie, whatever it is that assists us in getting ourselves and feeling on track. Oftentimes it's just being with ourselves, just loving ourselves. So focus on what's within our control and breathe. I talked about that. Taking quiet times for ourselves. and getting present, listening to our wisdom and putting energy into things and people that restore us, and redirecting our thoughts, feelings, and actions. You know, when we're not in a good feeling place, for me, that's a time that I need to just sort of quiet down and get a better sense of myself and what kind of thoughts I'm inviting into my head. You know, what kind of a thought party are you having right now? You know that by how you're feeling, because that's all intertwined. And sometimes just a 20-minute nap can help. So have faith in yourself and know somewhere deep inside, beyond your ego, beyond your personal self, lies a beautiful flower waiting to unfold. And it is the light of true knowledge that will make it blossom. And that true knowledge is of yourself and the strengths that you have that maybe you're not feeling like you have. Do you need to take some time to just get yourself healthy? Or with that work project you're going, do you need to just sort of talk to someone about it a little bit and get some ideas as to how you might be able to manage that? I've noticed that when I slow down and I take one thing at a time, things go so much more smoothly. Raise your vibrations. That's something that I notice that when I'm doing those breathing exercises that Wim Hof has on YouTube, that I start to tingle throughout my body. And that feeling is really energizing. And I can almost recreate that at any time that I want to and raise my vibrations that, and hopefully that care, love, joy that I create within myself goes out to other people. And I love this circular thing. Being joyful isn't what makes you grateful. Being grateful is what makes you joyful. Because if you just notice those little things, instead of noticing what somebody has that you want, but just notice those little things that you really appreciate that are like, I just got some new knives for my birthday, and what a joy it is to be able to cut an apple so quickly and to cut through meat. You know, it's just one little thing to be grateful for. I don't see anything in the chat, and Joanna, you don't either, right?
Well, we've had one comment that I thought would be good. What about people who maybe don't have as much family around at the holidays, or they don't feel like they have that family-oriented holiday experience? What would be a good mindset for them? Because this is a time of year when it's all family, 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 and for some people that's not an option
Oh,
or
yeah.
not a desire.
Exactly. That is really a beautiful thing. So how can you create, depending on if it's days, you want to decide on how you want to create some special celebration of you, and what would that look like? And maybe if you want to tie into a Zoom or a phone conversation with someone you appreciate, that might be a part of it. But for personally, when I have those times, and I am divorced, and so there are some times when I have been without family, without friends that were available, and when I remember so well that when I took it so seriously, when I actually was feeling sorry for myself, instead of deciding, hey, how can I look at this in a different way? Because the times when I was able to look at it in a different way, it seemed that the things that I wanted to happen happened more smoothly, that maybe there was some special dish I wanted to make for myself, or maybe I wanted to order it from some other place. I mean, when you just think about the things that do bring you joy, that don't have to be with other people, And then if you want to, because there are also people out there that, like you, do not have lots of family around. I was just with a friend who I took to the doctor today. She is very concerned about the virus, so she makes sure that she stays close by, but she might listen to a YouTube, watch a fun movie. Writing is a wonderful thing to be able to do, just getting up early in the morning and writing. Music, your favorite music, candles. I mean, I like to set the scene. So, how am I going to, if I were going to have a wonderful dinner for myself, what would I do? And if you sit quietly, the things that you really want to have will probably start to happen. And look for people that you notice that maybe have lost a spouse or that are all of a sudden alone that you might be able to reach out to if you really do want to spend time with someone, because I know that there are people out there like that. I wanted to read this. This is a wonderful leadership book called Leadership Flow: The Unstoppable Power of Connection. And these are some wise words from Ponca Chief White Eagle, and hopefully will help for whether we're in a frantic place of knowing that we're having lots of company, or in a place of thinking, I'm not feeling very loved. How can I love myself right now? When you're in doubt, be still and wait. When doubt no longer exists for you, then go forward with courage. So long as mists envelop you, be still. Be still until the sunlight pours through and dispels the mists, as it surely will. Then act with courage. So I'm wishing you courage, joy, and gratefulness, and the creation of a time and a renewal that you didn't even anticipate was possible. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Scarlett. If anyone has questions or comments, please enter it into the chat and I will moderate any kind of Q&A we have or share any comments. I wanted to remind you of some resources through EFR. If you're listening today and have our benefit, you have a lot of great resources to help you through this time of year. So we have 24-hour phone support at 800-327-4692. You have access to in-person or virtual counseling sessions. Depending on what your benefit looks like, you get either 3 or 6 at no cost, and you can accomplish a lot in 3 or 6 sessions. So calling into EFR is completely confidential. We will do a brief intake just so we can coordinate your benefits and make sure that we know what you're eligible for, but you can call us anytime and we're here to help you with any of life's challenges. Outside of the counseling, we have financial consultation, legal consultation, elder child care resources, identity theft resolution, and life coaching. So don't forget to turn to EFR when things are feeling overwhelming or stressful, or if you have that doubt or if you're questioning. The other thing I want to remind you of is we have an app available, and I think that's the next slide.
Oops. Sorry about that. There you go.
Oh, the next slide, actually, this is about our podcast.
There we go. Do you want to go back to the podcast?
I'll touch on the podcast after I share the app. So we rolled out an app just this fall. You can find us in the Apple App Store or get it on Google Play. And this app has a lot of great information. You can register for webinars, view past webinars, read our blog, stay connected to our podcast, which I'll share about in a moment. And you can also start chatting with our call center to schedule your appointment. And then if you do want to go back to our slide about the podcast, Scarlett, we do a monthly podcast. I'm Johanna Dunlevy, the wellness manager, and I'm also the host of our podcast. It's called Emotion Well. You can listen to our podcast through the app. You can find it on our website, which is efr.org, or you can find us in podcast players like Google Play, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. But we have a variety of topics and episodes are usually 20 to 30 minutes long. So if you're looking for something to just kind of give you a boost of inspiration or information, consider our podcast. And along the lines of podcasts, Scarlett mentioned the Huberman Lab podcast with Andrew Huberman, and I was just recently introduced to him and his podcast, and I love it as well. So I'm going to give a plug for that.
Thanks.
We have a question. Do you have tips for being around anxious family members and remaining calm and centered? This is a good one. I'm going to listen closely to the answer. So when you are around anxious family members, how do you stay calm and centered?
When I'm around anxious family members, I try to be loving, and I also try to shift the conversation. And sometimes I'll even remind them that there's a friend of mine who got really anxious about not having, she had all of our things packed, and that meant that this video that she thinks that she needs for her hip to be okay was packed. And so, I noted, Betty, if you might think about the fact that it probably you can do something just like that, and I have a whole set that I can give you that will help you get over that. It's trying to love them and redirect them as much as possible to new things to talk about. And it might not be any, and it probably won't be anything that they have after you let them talk about their anxious thoughts and feelings, and maybe help them calm down and point to who they are and their strengths. Then you have a chance to engage them in a conversation that can bring their happiness and their good feelings up. Usually something fun, like if you've got a funny story that you can tell, can also help to shift them. It's a real delicate balance of honoring where they are and listening, and then also not letting them go down the rabbit hole any further. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see any other questions or comments, so we will go ahead and end our webinar today. As far as our webinar for the month of December, I am actually the host, so it's exciting for me to be hosting a webinar. I normally moderate all of our webinars, but I thought that you would enjoy the gift of relaxation, and that fits nicely with what Scarlett was talking about today. So if you would like to give yourself the gift of relaxation, please join me on Wednesday, December 8th at 10 a.m., where I will be talking about the benefits of mindfulness and then leading you through a guided relaxation. So really the intent of this webinar is a little bit of information and learning, but more just that gift of relaxation. So you can go to efr.org to get registered for that. And I look forward to hopefully seeing your name on our attendee list for then. But thank you, Scarlett, for all of your contributions to the EFR webinars in 2021, and we will have you back in 2022.
Thanks, Johanna. It's a treat. Thank you all for giving me reasons to look for new ideas.
Yes, for sure. Have a great day, everyone.